Well, after that, all I can say is that Season 6 is going to be amazing. Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for the season finale of The Walking Dead, Season 5, Episode 16, Conquer. Now, I know a lot of people were definitely looking forward to this episode. I myself was definitely looking forward to it after the cliffhanger last week, and the amazing speech that Rick gave and everything, and that amazing fight that went down between Rick and Pete. I really didn't know what was going to happen in this episode, and we knew someone major was going to die. And while no one major died in this episode, this still was an amazing finale. And so many people have been complaining about how this finale was very disappointing. But let me explain why this finale was so good. This finale was not about just people dying. That's not what the finale was about. It was about seeing if this group can still survive, if this group has what it takes to survive and acclimate to this new life. And I love what this episode did with that. It had to be 90 minutes long. I know a lot of people said the episode was way too long, but it had to be 90 minutes long. All the stuff that happened in this episode, it had to be that long. I loved it was that long because the longer it was, the more into it I was. And let's just get in this episode because it was amazing and there's a lot to talk about. So we start with a car crash against a tree, and we see Morgan is back. This is the most screen time Morgan has had since Season 1. Morgan sleeps in the back of it. He wakes, and some people said that this scene might have been the best best opening scene in Walking Dead history. It definitely is up there. I'd have to say that. Now, I'm not going to say this was the best episode of The Walking Dead ever because I have seen better, but it definitely was up there with the best episodes. It really was by far the best finale I've ever done. Um, so Morgan wakes up and smiles at a lucky rabbit foot, and he gets out and makes some breakfast sitting by a small fire. A man walks up on his gun on him with his gun drawn and sits down saying the food looks good. Morgan asks what the W's for, and of course, the W, of course, as we know, means wolf walkers. And there's a W on the guy's head. He says the first settlers put a bounty on wolves and says they're back now. And Morgan says everything gets a return, and the guy asks if he's shitting him, and Morgan says no. The guy says he likes talking and says he doesn't get to meet new people very often, and he says sometimes they find camps and run through them. He also says they have traps. He says it's different. It's a different thought, not meaning like this is equals. He says fireside chats are the closest to movies, and says he misses those. And he tells Morgan he wants breakfast and everything he has, and Morgan asks him to keep a little just to keep him alive. And the guy says he's taking Morgan too and he won't be alive. Morgan sets the cup down. The guy says some tribes thought the first people were wolves transformed to men and says it all gets a return like he said. And Morgan says he can have his supplies and there doesn't have to be any ugliness, but says he can't allow him to take him. So to take him allow, and Morgan says he will not allow it. He reaches for his gun, but the guy cocks it and says to be still and not move. Another guy comes out of the woods behind him, but Morgan is ready and moves. He tells him to go now. The other guy also has a W on his head, and he says no and attacks. And Morgan is just beating the shit out of him and being such a badass. I have to say, Morgan is such a badass. He really is. In this whole scene, I'm just like, Morgan is such a badass. He's beating them both. He says again they should go. He says please. They attack again. Strikes them with his staff. He knocks them out. Walkers come up. Morgan tries to shoot him with the guy's gun, but it wasn't loaded. Knocks his head open with his staff. Ties a guy up several times. Shoves him on the seat of a broken car. Honks the horn several times. Snatches the rabbit's foot and then leaves. And what a badass way to start the episode. It really sets the tone for this episode. And that is that they still are very strong. And that really is the theme of this episode, is conquering whatever is going on with them. I mean, everyone's trying to conquer something, and I think honestly that was a perfect title for this episode. So Daryl roars down the road on his hog, and Aaron follows along the car. They stop and get out, leaving the vehicles, and then we see Rick. He wakes up with a bandaged face in the bed. Now, I was very interested in seeing what was going to happen here, because as we know, Michonne was the one that knocked him out, so he's smirking him. Michonne asks what's funny, and Rick said it's like the train car again. He says after the whole thing, he's still there, which, honestly, it is surprising that Rick is still there. I thought he was going to get it this episode. I really did, and Michonne says Deanna wanted him to calm down, and he says Rosita patched him up, then Carl came by, but she sent him on Michonne, but he sent him on, and Michonne asks Rick what he's doing. She says they have Pete in another house, and says he should have told her what happened, and he says he couldn't tell her about the gun, and Rick says she wanted this place, and now I understand why Michonne knocked Rick out, because she didn't understand what was going on. She didn't know what else to do. She just thought Rick was going crazy and killed him, and then, basically knocked him out. I totally understand why Michonne did that. She didn't know what was going on. So Rick says they're there. Michonne says he just said he wasn't. The door opens and Carol, Glen, and Abraham come in. Carol asks him why he took a gun from the armory, and of course she is playing dumb here. He says just in case, and Glen says Maggie is with Deanna and says they're holding a meeting tonight. And Carol says at the meeting he needs to say he took a gun to keep Jesse safe, and she says to just tell them what they want to hear, and it's what she's been doing since she got there. Now, that's not why Rick took the gun. He took the gun because he wanted to kill Pete, and they weren't going to let him. And he was using the gun as a weapon against them, and that's why he took it. Michonne asks why, and Carol says these are people are children, and children like stories. And honestly, I agree with Carol. These people are very much like children. They don't want to kill anyone. They don't believe in violence and death and things like that. So I totally understand what she's saying when these people are children. They're definitely like children. And Glen says the people are guarding the armory, and of course they're scared of them too. So that's also how they're like children. So Glen says the people are guarding the armory, and Glen says they have knives, and that's enough. And Rick says if it goes bad, he'll whistle, and they'll take 3 key people, Deanna, Reg, and Spencer, hostage, and tell them they have to give the army or they'll slit their throats. And I honestly think that's a good plan because that'll make them realize that they need to kill someone. Because I said before, Deanna's a good leader. She knows what she's doing. She's just very unaware of how violent, of how bad things are. And she knows what she's doing. She's not in any way an idiot. She's not an idiot. It's just that she is not as, experienced as Rick is. And a lot of people have been saying, oh, Rick dictatorship, and everyone just listens to Rick. Well, they should listen to Rick, because Rick actually knows what the hell he's talking about. So that's why they listen to Rick. It's that simple. So Glen says it sounds like Terminus again, then asks if Rick wanted this. He says no, but he hit his limit and screwed up. He says, now here we are, and he says he's going to sleep some more and lies back down before leave. And I like that Rick said he did not want this. He didn't want to get this bad, but they didn't listen to him, and there they are. So Maggie watches Gabriel doing laundry, steps outside to talk to Deanna, who says they're going to talk about what happened, and Maggie tells her she let them all in and says she decided that and now wants to put that decision on people who don't have all the information. And Maggie says the things Rick has seen and lost have been significant. And Deanna says Rick pointed a gun at people, but Maggie says he didn't pull the trigger. And Reg says Michonne stopped him, but Deanna says she'll do what she has to do. She's very confused about what she really wants to do here, because of course, Gabriel told her that you can't trust these people, but at the same time, she does see some of Rick's points. That's something I like about Deanna, is that she's very level-headed. She tries to think of what the best thing is to really do here. She doesn't just think right away, okay, we're going to kill Rick. No, she's really trying to think, what should we really do here, and I love that about Deanna. So Maggie walks off, and Reg goes after her. He says the cavemen were all nomads, and says they evolved into this, and we lived, and he says so civilization starts when we stop running and start living together and stop pushing away people. And he says that's what he'll tell Deanna and everyone tonight, which, honestly, that's true. That is really what's going on, is that if they live together and stop pushing people away, they can do this and form a group and be as strong as Rick's group. Because let's face it, the strongest group right now is Rick's group. Rick, Michonne, Maggie, Glen, Daryl, all of them. They are the strongest group. So, I do have to agree with what he said there. So Sasha's outside the wall cleaning up walker bodies that she shot. She wheels one to a giant pit and then looks at the pile of bodies in the pit, and she lies down on top of the pile of dead walkers, looks at the sky, and I pretty much think that was just her taking in the fact that she's a killer and that she did this all on her own, and I think that's really what that's trying to show there. So Daryl tells Aaron someone came through there not long ago, and Aaron says they'll set up a mic to record them, and Daryl asks if they sent people away and asks what happened. He says it was 2 men and a woman early on. Davison was the leader. He says he brought them in and he had to see it out when it didn't work. He says he, Aiden, and Nicholas drove them far away and left them with a day of food and water. He says they all have their guns, and he says he can't make that type of mistake again. So he really does want this to work. You can see that. So Carol wakes Rick later and says it was good what happened last night. She says they have more cover now since the others think he's been found out. She offers him a new gun, and Rick asks why she doesn't want the others to know they have more guns. By the way, guys, in case you can't tell, this finale is extremely dialogue-driven. There's not a lot that happens, but in terms of, plot, there is a lot of things that happen. So Rick asks why she doesn't want the others to know they have more guns. She says Michonne knocked her out, and he says she and Glen are still with them. Carol says she didn't tell them just in case. Rick says he doesn't want to lie anymore, and Carol says he cannot lie. He can't not lie and not take this place. She says he can have it both ways, which is true. Rick really needs to decide what he wants to do there. So Daryl and Aaron watch a guy in the distance. He's rubbing his face, and Aaron asks what the guy is doing. He says he's using weeds to keep mosquitoes off. And Rick leaves the house and walks past Tobin and some others. He walks past a glaring Deanna, too, and Nicholas creeps where Glen is sitting. Maggie comes to tell Glen it's what she thought, and she's going to talk to people and try to solve this. And Glen tells her how he loves her, and Maggie says she's sure it works out and says she'll see him there. So she leaves, and Glen sees Nicholas climbing the wall. Gabriel's let out of the gate by Spencer to go for a walk. And he says he doesn't need a gun because he has the word of God as protection. And Rick comes home, and when that happened, I'm like, why would you let Gabriel out? Like, that's not a good idea. I knew something bad was going to happen there. So Rick comes home, gives Carl a hug. He tells him he's sorry, and Rick tells Carl he needs to stay home from the meeting. And Carl asks if this is home now. And I like that Carl asked that because I think that's really been the big theme of this Alexandria, safe zone arc. Is this really their home? And basically he talks about how the others are going to die without them, and Rick says he may have to threaten or kill one of them, and Carl says he needs to tell them again so they can hear him. And I like that Carl said that because it's true. That's the best thing to do here. You kill the weak, and you kill the weak, and you keep the strong. That's really the kind of world they're in. Yes, it seems like a bad thing, but the situation that they're in, that's really what you have to do. If anyone's weak, you can't keep them there because they don't know how to kill people, or you just have to teach them how to kill people. And I think Rick's really at the point where he doesn't really know what to do, and he says he doesn't know if they can hear him, and that's if he's afraid, which is true, because the last time he tried to give them that speech, he was knocked out by Michonne. So Carl said he's afraid for the Alexandrites and says he has to tell them, and Daryl and Aaron watch some walkers behind a gate and wonder where they lost the guy, and Daryl says he loses them sometimes, but says this is unusual. It's not normal for this to happen. Daryl says leaving means giving up, and Daryl says they need to keep looking for the good ones, and Aaron says they need to keep feeding the ones they have, and Daryl says okay, taps on the fence, walkers come over, they kill them through the fence, then open it, head inside to the food company facility, and they see some cans tied with strings on the side of a trailer. They head up onto the loading dock, and Aaron says the guy was in a red poncho so they can see him a mile away. He takes an Alaska license plate off the truck. He's excited they may have a trailer full of canned food. The trailers are booby-trapped, and when this scene was incredible, I have to say. This just might be Daryl's most badass scene yet. Like, this was just awesome what we saw here. Daryl touches a walker. They spring open. Walkers pour out, all marked with W's on their head. There are more in the yard now. They battle them. Daryl puts Aaron under a trailer. The walkers come at them. Daryl leads him out. They grabs a chain, then, slashes the walker's head. It was awesome what he did there, and they hack their way through a myriad of walkers. They get into a vehicle. They're able to shut themselves, but there are dozens of walkers surrounding them, including several torsos tied to the truck, and Aaron says the auto glass should hold for a while. Daryl says they need to try and block their view of truth, and Aaron finds this crumbled note in the car that said, "Trap, bad people coming, don't stay." And basically, that kind of sucks because they just saw that, and then that whole attack happened, so if he found that note, none of this would have happened. So Carol goes to see Pete, and this scene was amazing, I have to say. This scene between Carol and Pete, I loved it. And she talks about how she needs to check on Tara, and he tells her to get out. She has a knife in her hand, says she could kill him right now. She says she will, and no one will believe she did it because she didn't like him. She holds Sid to his neck and says people will believe he tried to hurt her. And she pulls the knife away and tells him to come at her. He doesn't, and Carol says no. She says he has a chance the way this is played out. She says he's there and his wife is over there. She says he's a small, weak nothing. And I like what she says to him. She basically says, you're a small, weak nothing, and with the world how it is, he's even weaker. And she says if he plays his cards right, he may not have to die, which is true. Pete thinks he's a lot more powerful than he actually is. He's not that powerful. Compared to Rick, he's nothing. Really, he's nothing. I mean, he's this guy who he thinks he's like the most powerful thing ever, and he's really not, and it's true. With them there, he's nothing, and I like that she told him that, because it's true. He is nothing, and if she killed him, no one really would care. So she hands him a casserole, says she wants her dish back clean when he's done. She walks out on him, and he drops the casserole and rants, and he's like, this isn't my house, this isn't my house. He's breaking things, he's going crazy. Like, Pete clearly has no idea what she's talking about. You can tell he has no idea. And he doesn't care either. So Glen's outside the wall following Nicholas. He comes upon some blood in a Ravage walker. Here's a twig snap. Then he's shot, and it's Nicholas. He sees blood, but Glen's gone, and I thought Glen was going to die. I really did. That scene right there, I thought Glen was going to get it because they said a major character died. Glen was one of those characters. I thought Glen was going to die here. And I love the tension throughout this episode. That's the thing I forgot to say, is that there's so much tension throughout this episode. Just from the beginning, there was so much tension and really set the tone for the episode. And Rick comes to see Jesse, who was at her broken window, and I was wondering how things are going to be between the two of them, because Rick kind of scared Jesse off, but you can see that he still really does care about her. And she tells him he should go, and he says he wanted to check on her, and then says she was right. She says people shouldn't see them talking right now. He says he's not sorry he did it no matter what happens or what he has to do, because he did it to protect her. And Jesse tells him to turn around when he goes to walk away. He stops, and she says he was right, then he walks off, and you can see that I don't think it's not that Jesse wants anything to do with him. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just that Jesse really doesn't know what to do right now. She's never really been in a situation like this, and she doesn't really know how to handle it right now. So I like seeing that. I thought that was really well done overall. So Pete watches them talking through the window of his house he's in, and Daryl and Aaron ponder their options, and Daryl's chuckling. He says he came out there because he felt closed up back there. He says even now this still feels more like him more than so back in the houses, and says that's messed up. Aaron says he saw them with the group when he went off alone at the barn with the storm coming, and he tells Daryl he watched them, led his people to safety, and that's when Aaron knew he has to bring them back. He says the mistake was his for giving up on looking for the poncho guy, and Daryl pulls a knife, says he'll lead them away. Aaron says it was his fault, but Daryl won't hear it. Aaron says they can fight together, go for the fence together. He says make it or not, they have to do it together. Daryl takes a toke off his cigarette. They agree to go on 3. They count 3 shots ring out, a couple goes down, and there's Morgan. And this was so awesome, because after all this time, we've all been wondering, what is going to happen with Morgan? When is Morgan going to meet up with all of them? Morgan meets up with them. The first person he sees is Daryl. It's awesome. He works with them to cut a swath through there. They get out, shut the gate, then shoot a couple of stragglers, and Aaron tells Morgan that was crazy and thanks him. He introduces them to him, and he says he's Morgan. Daryl asks why, and Morgan says all life is precious. Aaron says whoever set the trap is coming, and tells Morgan about Alexandria if he wants to come along. Because, of course, Morgan doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know where they are. He just followed them to where Rick sent that note to. That's all that he did. So Morgan says he's on his way somewhere and shows him the map to help, and Rick's name is on it. And Daryl smiles, and I thought that was really good. So Gabriel walks in the woods whistling. He comes upon a walker feeding on someone. He holds out his arm and says he's ready. The walker turns to him, staggers over. Gabriel watches him come and then looks scared. The walker has a noose on his neck, and Gabriel grabs it and decapitates it. And I was like, wow, Gabriel actually killed a walker. And the head keeps growling, and he bashes in the head. He walks over the body in the road. The guy's still somewhat alive. His entrails are hanging out. Gabriel kills the guy, sits down, starts bawling loudly, because I think Gabriel's worried that he is going to become what they are. And of course, to him, they are the enemy. Rick, all of them, they're the enemy, and it's terrible what they're doing. And I know people don't like Gabriel's character, but you have to see his point, that he just thinks that they're the bad people because he's never really had to do something like this before. And he's starting to turn into them, which I really love seeing, because I do like Gabriel's character. I think what he did to them was wrong, but I do see his point there, and I thought overall that was really well done and such an amazing scene, especially because whoever thought that he'd kill someone. So Abraham comes with flowers for Tara, but Eugene is there, so he starts to go, and this is the moment where I realize, you know what, everyone has something to do in this episode, which I love, because everyone's always complaining that the group is too big and they don't have enough to do. Well, because this episode was 90 minutes, they were able to give everyone something to do, which I loved. So Zia knocks over a pan to wake Eugene. He tells Abraham good afternoon. It was kind of a funny scene. And I like what he says here. He says Tara saved his life, and says she opened his mind to things. He says he crafted a lie to give Abraham's considerable talents a mission. And Eugene thanks him and says he's sorry. He says he means both empathetically, and Abraham says he's sorry too. Eugene says there is that. Spencer opens the fence for Gabriel and asks if they can talk later about Aiden, and he says he needs someone to talk to about what happened and has no one. And Gabriel agrees. He asks him to close the fence, and Gabriel says okay, and I did not know what Gabriel was going to do here. Gabriel pushes the fence haphazardly and rebounds, leaving a small gap. Nicholas comes onto the walker in the woods while chasing Glen, pulls out his knife, then shoots it. Glen attacks and they grapple, and I was surprised that Glen was still alive, but Glen's knocking him down, breaks his knee by stomping it. Nicholas puts his thumb into Glen's shoulder wound. A walker comes onto them. Nicholas steps away. Glen struggles the walker, then another comes on him. I thought Glen was going to kill Nicholas. I really thought that's what was going to happen there, but Michonne then comes and asks Rick if he's ready, and he says Carol, Daryl, and him worked it out together. He says they took some guns from the armory. He says they lied to her because he wasn't sure how she'd take it or what she would do. And he offers Michonne the gun, and she asks if he thinks she tried to stop him, and he says she hit him over the head, but she says that was for him, not them. And I love that she said that. She did that to save him. That's why she did that, because if Rick wouldn't have stopped what he was saying, he would have probably been killed or something bad, or what would have happened to Pete would have happened to him. So I like that Michonne said that, because all of us are wondering, why did Michonne do this to Rick? And that's why. She was trying to save him. And Rick says he was afraid. She talked him out of it and says he could have. And Michonne says they don't need them there. She doesn't need her sword, because she doesn't have a sword, of course, and she says they can find a way. She says if they don't, she's still with him. And Michonne says something will happen, but tells him not to make something happen. He offers the gun, but she gestures for him to keep it, and then tells him not to take too long. And Rick thinks about Morgan, telling him that nightmares end and this isn't the real world, tucks the gun in his belt, looks out the window, and that's such a more effective scene, knowing that Morgan is out there and knowing that he's going to reunite with Rick any second. It's amazing that he thought of that. So he leaves in a hurry and goes down, and he sees the gate was open, and he's looking around, and he doesn't know why the gate was open, because of course he doesn't know about Gabriel, and he notices there's blood on the ground, and looks around. Shuts the gate, latches it, follows the blood in a hurry, skirts the gate at a run, looking for the trouble, picks up the pace. Gabriel goes to his makeshift chapel in the garage, and finds Sasha there. She says she doesn't know what to do, and what's in her head. She asks if he can, she pretty much thinks she's going crazy at this point. She really doesn't. She asks if he can help her, and I'm just like, why would you ask Gabriel out of all people? Gabriel, I knew what he was going to do. He was going to put her down, and Gabriel saying, no, he's not going to help her. And Deanna and the others are out there outdoor meeting, but again, to Gabriel, she is the enemy. And then we see Deanna and the others are at their outdoor meeting, and Maggie asks her to wait for the others to come and says Glen and Rick aren't there. But Deanna insists that they have to start now, and she says they're going to talk, not fight. And I like that she said that, because she doesn't want to fight. She just wants to talk about it. And she says they have to talk about how Rick stole a pistol from the armory, pointed it at them, and what they said. And it's true that they need to talk about this, because they haven't really gone through this before. They're not used to this happening, and I like that she didn't want to fight about it. So Carol says she's sure they can work this out, and Nicholas is in the dark woods limping on his injured leg. Rick pulls his knife, jogs past some houses, and Sasha tells Gabriel she thinks she wants to die. And I honestly thought Sasha was going to die. I thought Gabriel was going to, kill Sasha or something. I really didn't know what was going to happen here. Gabriel says she doesn't deserve to be there, and he's literally putting her down here. He says she should die. He says her choices are horrible. Sasha says she knows what he's doing, and he says Bob was mutilated and consumed because of her sins, and she tells him to stop. And he's just making her feel like shit. I'm like, seriously, Gabriel, all you are doing is making her feel like shit. Just stop doing that. And he says Tyrese thought he was apart from him, but he was a part of it. And he says he deserved to die. She attacks him. Michonne tells the others at the meeting about the stress. And I love that Sasha attacked him, because he was just putting her down. That's all he was doing. It wasn't helping her. He's just putting her down constantly, and that doesn't do anything. So Michonne tells the others at the meeting about the streets of being out there, and says Rick just and I love what she says, that Rick just wants them all to live and survive, which is true. That is what Rick wants to do. He wants them to survive. He wants them to live. And Michonne says who Rick is who they will all be if they're lucky. And it's true. That is, they should become someone like Rick, because Rick is someone to admire. Rick can do all these things. Rick knows the world, and he is by far the smart, he is by far the most experienced of all of them with this. And Rick finds the walkers. There are several, fights them off, and Sasha and Gabriel struggle over a sniper rifle. They shoot out the garage door. Glen finds Nicholas, knocks him down. Carol says Rick saved her life over and over, and says people like them need people like him. And she tells them what happened last night was scary, and she's sure Rick is okay, but says they need to listen to what he was saying. And I read an article that people are tired of people taking Rick's side, but honestly, that's the best thing to do, is to take Rick's side, because he knows what he's doing. And I love that they took Rick's side here. So Rick is struggling with a walker, and basically beats it, has him on the ground. It's biting his face. Rick chokes it. Glen beats Nicholas. Abraham tells him there's a vast ocean of shit out there, but that they know nothing about it, but says Rick knows every grain of it, then some. And that really sums up Abraham's character. Abraham has thought that he was a better leader, but now he's realizing that, Rick is a better leader, and I love that. And Rick chokes until he dies, and blood explodes all over his face, throws it off of him, and the guy in the orange poncho is with the two others at the gate of the place where Daryl and Aaron were trapped. They're gonna get them, and the two guys hack orange poncho guy across it. That's really his name, is Poncho Guy. They have him across his stomach to make him feel bleed. to make him bleed, and they go to open the gate, and Maggie tells the group that her father respected Rick and says Rick is a father. And I love that she said that because it's true. Ever since Herschel died, Rick's been their father and feels strongly about what he does and has to do. She says their group is family now and says they can't stop this and shouldn't want to. She says they should want to be a part of the family too. And I thought that was such a well done scene because all season they've kind of felt separated from Rick, but now they're realizing that they are family and they need to stick together because Rick is what they need to survive. And Deanna says she wants to share something in the spirit of transparency, and she says Gabriel came to see her and says the new arrivals can't be trusted. They're dangerous when put themselves in front of this community. She says not one day later, and Rick demonstrated what Gabriel said. Jesse speaks up and says Gabriel isn't there and asks if she taped him. She says she didn't, and I like that Jesse said that because it's true. Why should they listen to Gabriel? Gabriel wasn't taped. Gabriel, they have no idea anything about Gabriel. And I like that Jesse again is taking Rick's side. Maggie walks away. Glen tells Nicholas he warned him, but he tried to kill him. And it's such an amazing scene here because I thought Nicholas was gonna die here. He puts a gun in Nicholas' head. Sasha has her gun on Gabriel. The W guys use a loud light and music to lure walkers back into the semis, and Tobin says he just wants to keep his family safe. But then Rick is there, tosses down a dead walker. The others scream. Nicholas cries and says he doesn't belong. Glen tells him to shut up. Nicholas says he doesn't belong out there. And Glen stops sort of shooting him. He sits down beside the idiot. And Gabriel tells, because honestly, Nicholas is an idiot. And Gabriel tells Sasha to do it. And Maggie comes in and takes the gun away from a crying Sasha. And Gabriel tells Maggie that he should let her do it. He says they all died because of him. She kneels down and takes his hand. She says they did, and he nods. She pulls him up, and I like that Gabriel admitted that, yeah, they all died because of Gabriel, because he didn't want them to kill anyone, and I thought that Gabriel was going to die. I really did, but he doesn't. And Rick says there was no guard on the gate and it was open. And Spencer says he asked Gabriel to close it. He says he didn't bring it in, but says it caught inside of its own. And he says they always will, the dead and the living, because we're in there. He says the ones out there will hunt us. And Rick's speech here, oh my god, Andrew Lincoln's performance, by far the best speech that Rick has ever given. I absolutely love this scene. And Carl and Jude listen to a music box, and I like that he said there was no guard on the gate, because that they could let anybody in. Basically what he's saying is that we need to be more mindful of the guard on the gate, because they could have let anyone in. They could have let a walker in, and anyone could have gone through that gate. I love that he said that. So Carl and Jude are listening to a music box. Glen helps Nicholas back to Alexandria. Rick says they will try to hunt, kill, and use them, and it's true, they will. And Rosita reads to Tara. She wakes up, so Tara's okay. The traps in the yard are recessed. They close the last truck. One of the W men look through photos from the people inside Alexandria, including Rick and his group, and I thought that was a great scene when we saw that. The problem is, though, these are bad men, so that you can see right now they're definitely going after Rick's group. And Gabriel prays with Sasha and Maggie, and we're wondering who actually got those photos and things like that. And Rick tells them he can show them how to survive, and Rick says he was thinking about how many of them he would have to, and I love this line here. He says he was thinking about how many of them he would have to kill to save their lives, and Rick says he won't do that. He says they have to change, and says he's not sorry for what he said last night, but is sorry for not saying it sooner. He says they're not ready, but they have to be. They have to be ready, and they're not. He says luck runs out, and I absolutely love that speech, because he's basically telling them that, look, I understand you guys are not ready for this, but you have to be. You have to be like my group, because we know what we're doing, and if you want to survive, you have to stay with us, and I love that. So then Pete shows up with Michonne's sword, rants that Rick is not one of them. He's going on about all this bullshit and everything, and Reg is doing whatever he can to stop Pete. And I know a lot of people did not like this scene because of who died, but Pete then slashes Reg's throat. Deanna grabs him, cries, he bleeds, and it just shows that Pete thinks he's so powerful and will kill anyone, and basically Reg is dead, and honestly, it was a pretty big death, because Reg and Pete and Deanna are a big part of this story. Yeah, they may not be main characters, but for this story, they're huge characters, and for any of them to die, I was surprised by it, because I thought Reg and Deanna and Jesse were gonna go with their group. Now, I know Deanna is, but now Reg is dead, and everyone's horrified. Reg is gurgling blood, and Deanna she has no idea what she's to do. She's crying hysterically. And Pete's like, this is him. And Pete's just going on with all this bullshit. And I love what Deanna does. She decides, you know what, I am done with this. She tells Rick right away that he needs to do it. He needs to kill Pete. He puts a bullet in Pete without a moment's hesitation. And Morgan, Daryl, and Aaron walk in just then. And Morgan has no idea what's going on. He's speaking Rick's name. They both seem really stunned at what just happened. And wow, what an amazing scene. But then we get to the post-credit scene because Michonne then has her sword back from when Pete used it. And that's awesome because everyone is complaining that Michonne has not had her sword. So next season, she's going to have her sword, and we're back to seeing Michonne having her sword again, which is awesome. She looks up at the hooks on her wall, then decides to keep it, slides it onto her back. We see that Poncho guy is now a walker too. An SUV is sprayed with wolves not far, and that is setting up the villain for next year, which are going to be these evil wolf walkers, and I can't wait for season 6. What an amazing finale this was. Now, a lot of people said, the people that love this episode said it might be the best episode of the entire show. I'd have to agree, because this episode showed that Rick is a great leader, and that everyone should, trust Rick, and that they should ally with Rick, and I love seeing that. I thought that was really well done. My question is Alexandria really safe now? Can they make Alexandria safer? I think they're going to stay in Alexandria. I think this was going to happen, is that they're going to stay in Alexandria, and the group is going to try to get them to just listen to them and try to get them to make this just become a safer zone, because it's a safe zone, but it's safe in the fact that you can't kill anyone. And if you have to kill people, you have to kill people. And I love that Deanna realized that. And I think Deanna definitely is going to ally with Rick now, and I can't wait to see what happens there. Michonne having her sword back is awesome. I can't wait to see how that works out. Let's talk about what's going to happen with Morgan. Morgan has no idea what's going on. So Morgan and Rick have a lot of catching up to. I can't wait for their first interaction. It's going to be awesome to see. I can't wait to see what happens there overall. As far as Gabriel goes, I don't know what's going to happen with Gabriel. I think Gabriel's on the verge of dying. I don't think Gabriel's going to live. I think Gabriel's going to die in season 6, but we'll definitely see what happens there. It's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. Let's talk about Glen and Nicholas. What is Glen going to do with Nicholas? Because Nicholas is very unaware of what's going on. Nicholas was not there to listen to that speech that Rick gave. So, in many ways, Glen is just as powerful as Rick. So, I'm very interested in seeing where they're actually going to go with that, because I think that's really interesting. But what an amazing finale, by far best episode of the season. Let's talk about this season overall. This has been The Walking Dead's comeback season. It really has. I mean, season 4 was a great season. But the thing that this season had that season 4 didn't was closure. This gave us closure to a bunch of the storylines. It gave us closure to, can we trust the Alexandrians? It gave us closure to, can the Alexandrians trust Rick's group? It gave us closure to, can they acclimate to this new life? They have acclimated. It's just that they can't change who they are. They need to survive, and I love that. And I love that we saw that they're not bad people, because throughout this whole season, that's been that question of, are they bad people? Should we trust them? And no, they're not bad people. They just need to do what they can to survive. And I thought that was amazing to see, and I absolutely love that. And I loved everything about this finale. And the season in general, while it did have a few slow points, this definitely has been the best season of The Walking Dead. I have to say, it really has been. And I've loved pretty much everything that's been going on this season. And I can't wait to see where season 6 takes us. But overall, guys, that's my review. Let me know what you guys saw this finale. Were you disappointed by it? Did you agree with me that it was the best finale I've ever done? I personally think it might just be the best episode of the entire show, just because of how much it had to do with, their story, and how much it advanced the plot, because it did what a good season finale should do, is it furthered the plot. It made us excited to see season 6. It was long. It had to be long, but I loved it, and every minute of it I thought was amazing. And it constantly had tension too, which is what The Walking Dead should have. It just constantly have this tension, and I love this episode had that, and I love that this season had that in general, and that's what was amazing about this finale. But overall, guys, that's my review. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you guys in my next review, which is my review for Shameless. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.